let's get the show on the road. The special meeting for the East Grand Forks Economic Development Authority on Wednesday, April 22nd is now in session. Brenda, would you please call roll?
Pukshavinsky.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Helms.
Here.
Grindy.
Here.
Heck.
Here.
Black.
Oh, he got kicked out.
I can hear you, but I can't. I mean, I can see you, but I can't hear you. So Daniel's here. Blair?
Here.
So you have a full quorum.
Okay. Thank you. Daniel, can you hear me? Daniel is muted. So can you hear me, Daniel? Wave if you can hear me. Okay. I don't know why we can't hear you. See if you can figure that out, because
Sugar technology.
we need you to participate in this discussion. Okay. Well, Daniel works on that. We'll go to item number 2, new business, a loan policy. I'm going to let Paul start us off, and then we'll just open it up for discussion.
There are really a couple of issues for us to look at. First, as I pointed out in the report, the EDA's lending guidelines for the EDA include operating expenses, but they do not put a limit on operating expenses. But historically, we have tried to focus more on capital expenditures rather than operating expenses, and operating expenses are only a small part of loans. So the first thing to do is decide if we wish to have a cap on the amount of dollars that should be used for capital expenditures. I'm not for capital expenditures, for operating expenditures, and I have suggested $20,000 for that.
Can you repeat that amount?
20,000, 20,000.
Okay, it was garbled on my end. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to make a couple of comments and then just throw it out for discussion. There was some discussion about doing a small grant or forgivable loan, and the consensus among Paul and I and a few others was that has problems for several reasons. The amount that we could give was negligible. We don't know how we would replenish it, and that there was other resources out there available to businesses that could take care of that need. So what we've been focusing on is this operating loan of $20,000 max with a suggested interest rate of 1%, and then there's some details about applications and that sort of thing that I'll ask Mr. Gordy to address when anyone has any questions. And I'd like also to have Mr. Galsted give us his advice and opinions about which direction we should go. But my feeling is that the sense I get from other members of the board at our last meeting, members of the city council and the mayor, is that we should do what we can within the limits of the resources that we have. And we should make it as simple and with as few strings as possible, as few hoops as possible, and do it as quickly as possible to get some help to our businesses that have been devastated by this virus and the closing that we've been put under. So with that, I'll open it up for discussion and just go from there.
I agree with you, Mike, and to keep it as simple as possible, but yet protect us as best as we can so it doesn't turn into tobacco and a free-for-all.
Yeah, go ahead. Why don't we go around the room and I'll just call on people as I see them. Mr. Johnson, do you want to go next?
How many?
What do you anticipate, how many applicants?
At this point, we have two firms that are looking to borrow money this way.
Well, let's help them out.
Yeah, I guess I would say that once we get the word out that we take with the action that we take today, I think we will get a good deal of applicants. Lord knows there's a huge unmet need out there. We can't solve everybody's financial problems, but we can at least maybe close the gap between what they've got or at least make the gap smaller than what they need. So I guess it's impossible to say how many they're going to be, but we do have a finite amount of funds, so we'll have to figure out to have an orderly process for who gets them. Mr. Helms, you're next. Go ahead.
Well, I think that that $5,000 one that was talked about is really kind of useless in my view. I don't think a lot of people would do them a lot of good on that one. And I'm assuming we're talking about the $20,000 at the 1% right now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the 20,000, and I agree with you, Mike, that I do believe you're going to get a lot more people once this is put out. There will be a lot of people applying for that, even at the 1%. So I think we need to put a cap on how many can do that with the funds that we have available, and just do it on a first come, first served basis. That's all we can do. I mean, that's all the government's doing right now, basically.
Yep. Mr. Hecht.
I'm in agreement that I'd like to see the loans capped at 20,000. The 1% interest is something I want to see. The only thing I question is, do we still need to tie some of our loan parameters to this loan as well, as far as like a bank also borrowing them money to stay on their feet? I know that's something that we've discussed. I know the only reason I'm a little bit for that is because I think that's it's gonna help us from just anybody and everybody applying for this loan at 1%, thinking it's free money almost. Because if that's the case, are we gonna run out of money? And if people that really need it didn't get in on it, then we're missing out on helping the ones that really need it. I don't want this to be used as just a business looking at it going, hey, it's 20 grand at 1% interest. Why not go get it? I want this to be for businesses that are really hit hard by this and the ones that really need it. So that's why I'm wondering if we're going to still keep in place some of our loan parameters as far as that we're not a primary lender, that a bank has to be on board with it as well. And then we'll still give that 20,000. Like I said, I'm all for this. I want to do it. But I'm just wondering, how do we keep anybody and everybody from applying and giving people the money that don't really need it?
Mr. Cordy, can you address that?
Yes. What I envision is that we could actually operate within our current loan parameters. They need to show us how they are obtaining funds from other sources, whether it be SBA lending, whether it be state of Minnesota funds, or from their bank or from their personal bank accounts, or how are they doing this? And we will use those. From the people I have talked to so far, the money that they have received from things like the Paycheck Protection Program will be able to satisfy the 2/3, 1/3 requirement. So I would suggest we stay within those, but in their application materials, they have to explain how they're putting the entire package together, because we're looking for something that will help them survive and go to the future, reopen and operate in the future, not just something that stay right now.
Right.
Excuse me 1 second. Does everybody have their cell phones available near them? Because if you put them in airplane mode, it might change some of the feedback that we're getting.
Yes, sir, Mr. Gallstad.
Good suggestions.
Well, The president did ask Mr. Galsted to offer suggestions when they were timely.
Good call.
And then the other thing is I just asked Corey to kind of monitor this because of it. He also said, anybody not talking mute so that we don't get some of that other feedback.
Where did Puck go? We lost him.
You told him to put his phone in airplane mode, and that's what he's using. Mr. President, are you still with us?
There, I think I'm back now.
I'm back.
Okay, I'm back. I think I'm back. Can everybody hear me?
You just can't see you.
Okay. All right. Where were we?
I was responding to Justin's questions.
Okay. Okay, Justin, do you have anything to add?
I don't think so. Like I said, I just don't want this to be, I know every business is going to be affected by this some way, somehow, but obviously we all know that there's ones that are more severe, and I want to just make sure that those funds are available for those businesses first and foremost.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Blair?
I like the $20,000 cap. I think that's a good word to leave it at. I also agree we need to make this simple for the businesses, but we need to protect ourselves, and I think what we're talking about does that. So I support this.
Okay. Mr. Black?
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay. I just, my thought on the whole thing is we just need to make this effective for the businesses, and I don't think we need to take on the full risk. I think it should be in conjunction with a bank. I think that's probably a good idea. And I mean, if there's demand out there for it, we need to do something to help them out. That's just my opinion. And how we do it, I think some of the criteria that we need to look at, I think what Paul sent out earlier in the email, what another jurisdiction was doing, we need to include some of that stuff in there. How are you impacted by the coronavirus? And then from there, it's just got to be a first come, first serve. The one question I did have was if we were going to defer payments for the 6 months, or if we were thinking about maybe we might have to go longer on this loan. I guess that was my only question there.
Well, it is, I think the recommendation is to defer for 6 months. Yeah, no one knows when this is going to be over. I suppose we could go 6 months and then have people apply or ask for another 6 month deferral if that's what everybody wants. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure if I don't know. I'd welcome any other comments.
I think we should leave it at the 6 months and kind of take it at a case by case business without advertising it.
Are we able to, at let's say 5 months, look into this and go, yeah, this didn't go the way we thought it would, and let's extend it further?
Yeah, I think depending on how much money we have, I think, and I wouldn't rule out getting some further, depending on what Congress does, getting some further help from either the federal government. I'm not sure, but yeah, I guess it kind of depends.
If I may,
I guess just leaving it open would be my thought. Is 6 months is a good starting point, but I think we're definitely going to have to revisit this, depending on how long. I mean, a lot of it will depend on how long businesses are closed for as well.
When you're talking 6 months, you're talking from the time the loan is accepted. They have 6 months to pay it back.
no,
Deferred payments from the date, 6 months from the date they sign the papers.
For the first payment, okay.
Yes.
Because I was going to say that's $3,333 without the interest a month, and if you're just taking it out to help you get by, and you're not doing anything yet. That's why my question was.
and there would be 5 years to repay,
Okay,
and no interest for the first 6 months either.
okay, gotcha.
Right. Okay, it sounds like we have a consensus. Mr. Galstead, do you want to step in here and give us any advice on a detail or so that we maybe have to include?
Well, and I don't know if anybody got an opportunity to look through some of the application and criteria that were in the materials that Paul sent us, but just some of the stuff that my observations, for instance, would be one. I think it's probably prudent to have a kind of a window of application process so that we say we're going to, similarly say we're going to take applications for a week, 2 weeks, whatever, so that we have some type of a finite time frame on it that we could utilize. Second thing that I think we need to do realistically is figure out how much money we truly want to put in some type of a fund and cap that amount of money. It could always be looked at later, but depending upon the need, or say depending upon the how successful, or however you want it or state it, we also want to make sure we have some funding sources for other economic development, operating, purchases of equipment, those types of things in the future. And if you tie up all of these loan proceeds in an emergency fund for the next 5 years, you won't have any of that. The other thing that I would do potentially is set up some type of I know Paul provided us the applications for general information and loan assistance, but I think those need to be streamlined to specifically ask for information that is prudent to this type of we'll just call it a emergency loan assistance for operating funds, because it is kind of a subset. I don't disagree with Mr. Gordy that we could kind of use our general parameters, but if we're capping these operational loans, and that's where I was kind of getting at, I'm a little bit confused on what we're doing. If we're saying all loans are going to have a cap of $20,000 for operating expenses, that's one thing. But I'm anticipating that you're going to get people that aren't coming out and asking us for a general loan to continue business operations and put anything towards equipment or those types of needs. And it's going to be for operational funding, whether it's payroll, utilities, a mortgage, those types of needs. So I don't, so then it begs the question, are we setting up a separate type of a loan that's a subset of what we've got going on typically in our funding and in our economic development authority? So, I mean, we've got to kind of condense that. then once we get all of these loan applications, let's just assume we're going to be fairly busy. The criteria, the prioritizing, I think the prioritizing of who's acceptable. You know, it's easy to say, we want to help out, but I mean, how are we going to prioritize these loans? Are we just going to potentially give them to anybody and everybody? And I thought that the materials in the I'll just say that St. Louis Park materials that Paul gave us were some good directions in there on how they were prioritizing, what information was necessary to even get into the program. And then they basically were able to put in a pecking order who was going to be available. Now, I understand theirs was a grant program as opposed to a loan program. But when you're talking 1% money,
That's a good one.
I get where Justin's coming from, but how are you going to make that determination if I'm just getting 1% money because anybody's going to be able to show some type of need, whether it's payroll, utilities,
Supply.
mortgage payments, downturn in their business. So I'm a little bit fuzzy on how we're going to be able to kind of earmark it for what we say need. And I do like the fact that St. Louis Park basically designated what a small business loan was: 3 to 25 employees and less than $1 million gross production. So those are some of the details that I think, yes, we want to help out, but those are some of the details that we've got to iron out on how you want to run some type of a program. And what happens if they don't have a PPP loan or an EIDL loan or a separate bank that's giving them money? How are we going to handle that? So those are just some of the questions. I know I probably didn't, I threw out more stuff for you guys to think about, but this is a policy decision that needs to be thought through because I think there's a consensus to everybody that we need to help people out. It's just a matter of how to do it. Now I'm going to check out and you guys can talk.
My very simple comment that I have is we are in uncharted waters. And so the old rules can't apply. And you're going to find few businesses that haven't been hurt because the government has told them they have to shut their doors. Now, we represent the government, an arm of the city government, and we do have funds available to help with the impact of that decision. I think it's the right decision. I absolutely do. But I don't want to put up too many roadblocks and get in the way of this getting done in a very in a quick manner. People are bleeding red ink out there, and we want to get some cash in their hands. And so, yeah, I believe we have to have some guidelines, but I also believe that I'm sympathetic to worrying about where do we come up with funds 2 or 3 years down the road here if we spend everything. I'm not in favor of that, but I think we worry about that when we come to it. We have to. This is an emergency that we've never seen the likes of before. So that's how I feel about it. I think that's how a lot of people I've talked to, whether it's on the council or other board members. So I appreciate the legal advice and the need to make sure we have some criteria, but I want to go at this in a way that it is unprecedented, and so we have to act in a way that we wouldn't normally do under normal circumstances.
If I can just make a general comment. If we're capping it at 20,000 and we have 75 loans, that takes $1.5 million of our funds
Out.
out in just this instance. So that's where I was getting at, because if you're going to get 1% money, and I get what you're saying, Mike. And so this is policy. I'm just throwing it out there though, is that's every fund, that every penny that you have.
I agree.
And it's feasible that you're going to have, we'll just say 50 people, 50 businesses minimum that are going to ask for this once they know 1% money at $20,000 is out there for 5 years. And that's just an observation.
Yeah. And
Well, there
Go
are two
ahead.
issues to look at. First issue is, as a general rule, $20,000 in any loan as a cap for operating expenses. The second issue is, if we're going to do the emergency loans like this, do we want to do them at the 20,000 level, 10,000 level, 40,000 level? What amount do we want to do? But I would say that I think that what we have to do is, each business that successfully applies has to show how this money will help them survive and reopen, so that they will be function, come to full function as quickly as possible after everything is done.
I think to touch base on that real quick. I'd like to keep it at the 20 because, there's other programs out there that the government is putting out there to try to keep businesses from having to completely close their doors. It's like we had said earlier, I don't think that we want to be a primary funding source for anybody. Well, that's not our position. I know this is emergency, so we want to do whatever we can. But we also want people to not just rely on us, I don't think. Like Ron stated, we could run out of all of our money very quickly. When people know that they can get money at 1% interest, anybody is going to be able to show that this has impacted them. So we could virtually have every business in town try to sign up for it. Whether it's affecting them right now or not, down the road, everybody is going to be affected. There's going to be, business is going to slow down for everybody further on down the road, even 6-8 months down. So I don't want to see it go higher than the 20. And I agree, we have to have some kind of parameters in place, but if our only parameter is to show how is this affecting you, every business is going to be able to show that.
Is it something that we picked the 5-year thing for payback, or was that just something that was thrown out there?
I threw it out from the last meeting.
Okay.
So we have opportunity to address all the terms on any loan we make. We can address, as I said, we can look at what is on any loan, including capital investment, looking at capping the operating expenses at $20,000 for any loan. For the emergency related loans specifically, and as Ron has pointed out, it's a subset. Do we want to go with the $20,000? Do we want to do a lesser amount because it's operating expenses only? Do we want, we have a policy right now in place for loan at 1, 2.5, and 4%, depending upon the type of business they are. We could do that, or we can set a smaller interest rate. We can do 1 year, 5 year, 10 year. We can't go longer than 10 years. We can set the term for how long. We can set a period of time where they don't have to pay anything back until after a certain period of time, and we've talked about 6 months for that. Knowing that, hoping that everybody will be getting back closer to normal in 6 months. So there's lots of things like that we can talk about, and what we have to figure out, and what are the criteria. And as I said, I think they have to show not just damage, but how they're going to use this money, how this money will make a difference for succeeding and surviving and recovery.
So, because I'm catching what Ron's laying down with that future stuff. So I guess to me, when I'm looking at it, and 20 grand really in today's world in a business isn't really a make or break situation. but we're here to help them. This is what we can offer. So I agree we should go with the 20,000 max, 1% interest, and they pay all the fees. 2 years max on the loan. 6 months, no payments. And back to what Justin and kind of said there, that so we can kind of pick and choose, and no matter what we do, people are going to be mad. So we just got to get thick skin. Where is this going to help you help us? In other words, because if they're just going to grab 20 grand and they're going to go down the tank and they're running on that thin of a line, they got other issues in my mind that we don't need to be the bank on or hold the note.
I think we need to be the second line of funding. They need to have had some type of federal dollars, state dollars come in, their own bank, something, so that we're that just that little bit extra. Because if we're the only source of income they have,
They're in
I
trouble.
think Justin's right. They're in trouble, because if nobody else is willing to give them money, I think we should be real leery of giving them money. And if they're looking at it that, you know what, I'm okay, but hey, I can get $20,000 at 1%. I might as well take that money. And they're not needing any other help. They don't need our help either. That would be one way to make sure you don't have one that's just going, hey, I want that $20,000 at the 1%, because that is good. That is a heck of a deal.
Right.
I would agree too with that. And I mean, is there anything that says that we have to give them the full 20,000 if they apply for the full 20? I mean, if we have 50 people or something, apply for these loans, do we want to make it so that it's tiered of some sort, depending on how much or how much need they show, or how well they're going to be using the money in their business?
No, I don't want them to have to show us. I think we need to tell them, Daniel,
Okay.
because if people running their own books, they can cook it and show it any way they want.
Okay.
But if we still follow our loan parameters, if we're only going to be doing a third, that means that they still have to be looking at getting $40,000 plus from their bank or somebody else anyways. So it's not just a quick fix for them to come get the 20 grand from us. And that's what I don't want it to be. I want it to be that, hey, if they only need 10,000, then yeah, they should be getting 20,000 help from their bank or whatever, and then we'll do 10. So I think that's why I think we follow our loan parameters of being that secondary funding of only up to a third at a max of 20,000.
I like that idea.
Yes, because not to pick on it, but what comes to my mind right away is, haircut joints, your McDonald's and stuff like that are two ends of the spectrums that I don't think we should be having to fund.
Can I make a comment?
No.
I'll just use myself. I'll just use myself as an example in the light of what we're talking about. So I go out for a PPP loan. I basically show my staffing, and what I was able to get for 2.5 times my payroll, et cetera. So I get $100,000, right, that I've got to use for my payroll, lease, utilities, et cetera. Now I've got 100,000. I could go immediately to you and say, here, I've got 100,000. Here's my private or my government portion of that. And now I want $20,000 at 1% from you.
Yep.
And pay it out. I think the fact that I was able to get a PPP loan also shows that I have some type of need, because I'm not putting my employees on furlough status or on unemployment. And so I get my $20,000 from you. And if and I'm not saying we shouldn't be doing it or should be doing it. That's just an example in light of the fact that we're talking about we should be the second line of in line, so that we're not just, they're just not coming to us for 20 grand. And I don't know, that's just, if that's what you have in mind, I just was throwing it out there because I would qualify tomorrow for that $20,000. And I think most people in town would be able to do that as well, you know, for their, if they got that PPP loan or the EIDL loan or any of the SBA funding. I don't know about DEED. DEED's got that program out there where you've had to be rejected by the SBA, or you had to apply to the SBA, but you had to be rejected by your own banker to be able to be eligible. So that's just a thought. And I wanted to throw it out there.
I would actually be in favor of excluding the PPP and the EIDL for approval for our loan. I would rather them see that on top of that they go to their bank for help and show their bank that we need some help to keep operating on top of the PPP and the EIDL if they qualify for both, and then not have to borrow so much from their bank because they could come to us for a little bit. I think that's going to keep some of the people out that are just coming in to just try to get the 1% money. It's going to keep, it's going to show that we're actually giving to the money to people that really need it. Because if they got the PPP, which for all intents purposes, is basically going to help businesses out for a couple months because it was, 2.5 months worth of their payroll. Businesses are going to need a lot more help than that. But there's some that aren't going to need any more help than that. And there's some that aren't even really going to need the PPP that got it. I don't know what everybody else's feelings are, but I would actually probably like to exclude those two programs from qualifications for our money.
You've seen the things that I send out to the business list, etc. There's over 200 names on that list. So that means that we could have at least 200 potential applicants.
And that's where I think that if we're only lending to people that are also going to their banks as a primary lender and we're still the secondary, I think it's going to eliminate a lot of those people from even applying for our loan.
I think it's probably going to eliminate almost everybody from applying for your loan because right now, if they're looking for the cash right now, then they're not going to their banker at this moment in time. So it's weighing on when you want to get them the money because I don't think most people are running to their private banker other than doing the PPP loan to get funds right now.
But don't you think that they're satisfied by the PPP then right now?
Yeah, I guess I can't tell you. The only thing the PPP is going to do is get you through this 2.5 months of payroll. If you want it forgiven, you can take that money and 75% of it has to go towards the payroll. 25% of it has to go through utilities, mortgage interest, and leases. And I don't know if there's going to be more available out there. That's why I'm just curious on what we're doing. You
right.
know?
And I think that's why it's conflicting is because if we allow the 2/3 to come from the PPP or the ELDI, then everybody is going to qualify for it, like you said earlier. And I think that's something that we want to stay away from.
I'm just being devil's advocate here. I'm just trying to make you guys think about how you want the program to go, because right now it's just kind of shotgun in the dark. And I know we want to get money out there. I'm just asking how we want to do it because there's all kinds of different ways, as Paul has said. But the issue becomes, how do we want to do it if we're going to be doing it? And realistically, you guys could be broke if 200 people come out here for 10,000 or whatever. That's why I think there needs to be some thought process, and that's why I'm trying to spark conversation.
The other thing about this is too is that your main bank, they're going to be pretty tight with their money too, because they're not going to want to cash it out too and put themselves in any problems for some people. I'm going to use myself as an example as far as how we could probably look at doing this. My business, of course, is a charter bus business. I've been totally shut down. I'm not turning a wheel, nothing. So I have no income whatsoever coming in to me, okay? Now, I got the PPP, but that's going to take care of a handful of people. I got drivers that are on unemployment, and they don't want to come off unemployment because they're making more on unemployment than they made with me. So the people that's got the PPP is going to be, I think they're going to be looking for something too. And my business, I don't anticipate my business to pick up until school starts again, because that's what 90% of my business is schools, whether it be colleges or high schools or grade schools, whatever. So in my business, I think it's going to be such a thing that even if they say, let's go back to work tomorrow, it's going to take months for people to want to get on a bus and ride a bus and sit next to each other. So it's going to be a hard struggle, for some people. And I think, and the only reason I'm telling you this, because I think we can probably kind of look at the applications and say, hey, here's one that's hit harder than the other one or something. Maybe, maybe this one needs it more than the other one does, type of thing, is all I'm saying. So I don't know as we need, because everybody sends an application in, that we need to give it to everybody. Like I said before, I think Josh was talking about it too, that, you look at who really needs it. I mean, Justin, I'm going to pick on you just a little bit. You're in an insurance business. You're still selling insurance or collecting insurance in, and you still got income, you still got money coming in that way. There's a lot of people out there don't have a dime coming in. And so that's the only thing that I'm thinking that, we could probably look at a little closer and say, hey, these are the people who need it more. I got the PPP, and that's fine because I'm, take care of myself and my office people and one person mechanic here, but it's not doing anything for my drivers because they don't want to go on it.
Right.
I could make them go on it, but what's that going to, so I can understand this whole money issue that they're giving out to people with unemployment and everything else. That's going to be a big issue we're going to have to deal with too. So,
But what I see with that is that's the people that's spending the money that's going to get these businesses back rolling. That's why they're doing that.
Yes.
And we don't want to be giving away money because the world is going to come back. I hope we all know that, but like for an instance, Dale, or Justin or Puck, what would 20 grand do for you guys right now? And what stipulations would you guys like to see, just looking from the outside in? Ron, you do. But I know you got that in your front pocket, Ron.
That was only after you paid your bill.
Thanks, buddy. I'm a troublemaker.
And that's like something that I alluded to earlier as well, is that my business, I'm not seeing too much of a downturn yet. I foresee that we're going to see it because there's going to be people that can no longer afford their car insurance, or if they had toys, or their businesses are going down, or businesses I insure might actually close the doors, where I foresee that this is more long-term effects from me. And there's a lot of businesses like that, but that's why I say there's a lot that are hurting really bad right now. And there's a lot that are going to see this 8 to 12 months from now, that it's going to affect them, that they're not seeing it yet. And I, for one, don't see that my type of an industry is somebody that would need this type of a loan. But if we don't put some type of parameters on it, who's to stop me or from somebody in a business like mine that's not hurting from coming and getting 1% money and just use it for whatever they want, because they'll eventually be able to show that they were hurt by all this. Like I said, everyone will. I don't want people to take advantage of it. This is my whole point. We don't have an endless amount of money like the federal government can just redo another one and we'll just throw more money at it. We need to make sure our money is going to where it needs to go.
Well, and I agree with that, Justin. I guess that's where I'm getting at, and kind of what I think what Ron's trying to throw out there. You know, like for an example, like you say, down the road. I mean, we got to be looking at that. But then again, if your person is running on that ragged edge to pay their insurance on their toys and all that stuff, they got too many toys. You know that, I know that. And back to what Dale said, that we're a lot of us on this. All of us, we know who's doing good and who's doing wrong, who's playing a game, we can use our best judgment to kind of filter this out.
The one thing you need, though, is you've got to have some guidelines and some criteria.
Yeah.
You just can't make an arbitrary decision to deny someone because you think they don't need it. That's absolutely what we need to have in place before we go forward with this.
Because if we don't have those in place, we're going to be having all kinds of conversations about why did I not get this? And now they're going to, they could possibly take us to court because we didn't have a good reason to deny them. We just thought they were okay. So I think we have to be real careful and put these guidelines in place before we release the money.
We have to do anything right now? I mean, everybody's talking about more of the long term, where things are going. I mean, do we need to think about this and see where things are going to develop over the next month or two to really make a determination on how we want to target this?
That's a good point, Daniel. Let me ask you this, Paul. The phone calls you have gotten, what are they asking?
I missed part of what you said.
Sorry, bud. Just to kind of maybe answer that question for us, maybe the people that have been calling you, what are they asking you?
They are seeking some funds to cover the areas that the things like the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, and the other federal and state programs do not cover.
Well,
does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Because let's just take the restaurants then. So what you're telling me is they're looking for something to replenish their funds to get food in when it opens up. Is that a correct statement?
It could be inventory. It could be, I know of one company that's just lost its largest client. They're looking to be able to have enough revenue to survive. They've got a PPP loan, but they're going to need some other expenses that they have to cover that aren't fully covered in those loans. They're also concerned that things may not open, and it will take longer than 8 weeks before things are open, and there's limits on how much funding is available through the programs that have been offered on the federal and state level.
So right there with that, I don't know, this is, again, my personal opinion. I've lost contracts also. Dale, I'm sure you're in the same boat. I mean, that's life of business, unfortunately. I don't want to become a bank to replenish supplies. That's why you got lines of credit at a bank. And now we're policing them items. That's going to be a bad deal.
The question I would have is that I'm not sure exactly what you couldn't use some of these the loan monies for. PPP is one thing, but you've got the SBA loan out there that you can get anything up to $2 million loan from the SBA. And at least up until this part of it, that there was the EIDL, the $10,000 of that loan, whether you were rejected or not, was provided or could be provided and forgiven. It's not even a loan, it's a grant. So, if we're trying to supplement something like that, you'd probably be better off
directing them.
Well, but we'd probably be better off if we said the person was denied an SBA loan, or something on that line, but I don't know how you'd ultimately get denied those. So there's funds out there for everything. The only thing that really limited it was the PPP that said that if it was, and it didn't even limit it. It basically said if you wanted that to be forgivable, then you were going to use 75% of it for your payroll and 25% for other things. And if in fact it didn't go towards that, it was just a 1% loan that needed to be paid back and within 2 years, and you could use that money for anything. You know, realistically, you could use that money to pay down a mortgage that was at 5% for they didn't care.
And there are other small business administration loan programs that are still available. And if you get one of those loans, the federal government will actually pay your principal and interest for 6 months.
See right here, this is, instead of us giving out money right now, I think this is what we need to get more, or have Paul, whatever, educate these people on that stuff. Because EDA isn't a bank.
That's been the primary focus of my work for the last 30 days. And that's why I send out the materials to everybody so they get them, and so that they can see their other programs. The Federal Reserve is putting together they're creating the rules for a very large assistance program that they're doing. I was talking to Council President Olstad yesterday because neither of us have seen the rules yet. I was checking to see if he's seen anything on that. The rules have not come down.
Right.
There's a lot of money that's coming through the federal government. There was a new bill passed and signed yesterday or today.
Yes.
To add more money to the programs. There are a lot of programs to shop at.
So I guess
we can take a look at all those programs, and I'm trying to share all that information with businesses without totally inundating them with more emails.
Well, and me, that was mainly what I guess I was trying to get in that email that we had, Paul. Is what I was trying to get at is maybe let's be more of a proactive part of it. Be on the phone. Hey, how you doing? Well, this. Okay, there's this program. There's this program. There's this program to educate them on. Versus us saying, hey, here's 20 grand.
Most businesses have said they're okay right now. Most of the ones I've talked with have said they're okay right now, and they're taking advantage of the federal programs.
Okay, I'm gonna step in here. I don't think we're near a consensus about putting together a program and approving it today. So we've been at this almost an hour and a half now, and I think unless someone has something that we absolutely have to discuss, or someone has a motion they'd like to throw on the floor, then I'd suggest we just put this on the shelf and keep it open for discussion for our next meeting.
And just I agree with you, Buck.
Okay.
Can you put together a list of like the businesses that have been most affected right now? Do you have something that's from the state? We look at, you've got some businesses that are completely shut down that are mandated by the state, which I think those are going to be the ones that may potentially need this first and foremost. You look at clothing stores, dentists. We all know that restaurants are somewhat shut down. They're hurting, but they're able to do a little bit. But we actually have some that are mandated, completely shut down right now. And, hairstylists, those are all the industries those are small businesses that run our community, that a lot of people put their life savings into starting these businesses and opening them and running them. And this could really affect them and shut them down. Where I'm just curious if you can put together a list of those ones that have been mandated that they can't be open, and then we could look at those ones first, maybe.
Well,
on the deed website and the information from the state, they show which businesses are most affected. So we can get you categories, and we can probably, all of us know the people, or can figure out the people who would be within each category, but there are categories that are affected more than others. Deed keeps pointing out that 82% of the people who were employed are still employed by the different businesses. A lot of them are working at home, but revenues are down substantially for a lot of businesses. There are only some businesses that can't operate at all. And you went through the list of the ones that are really most affected. Those are selling products like clothing and apparel, and those that are providing personal services like haircuts or beauty styling and things like that. Those are businesses that are heavily affected by what's going on. And the thing is, most of those folks in the hairstyling, for example, don't qualify for unemployment insurance because they don't pay into the system.
Exactly.
So they're waiting on the pandemic unemployment assistance program to become effective, and that won't happen until the end of this month at the earliest. And at least it's backdated for them, and they'll be able to get the $600, but it means that they've been basically without funds for 6 weeks before this goes into effect. So yeah, I can put together categories and do that.
I think we need to wait and see.
Yeah,
I think we need to wait and see what's affected and what isn't affected.
Okay.
I think what Paul is doing right now is really good, and I think that's going to help us out trying to figure out where we sit at in the next couple months. But I think until we have some more data to figure out what's being affected and what isn't, I mean, especially talking about businesses who may see upticks that are seasonal as well, to me, that's where the economic development, we may be able to help out a little bit more in some of those businesses that may not see that uptick until school starts, for example, or until the season starts for building more homes, something along those lines. That's just kind of my thought on it, and I think tabling it right now is probably the right idea.
Okay,
So
I'll
how
make
long-
a motion to adjourn.
Well, I was going to ask a question regarding
I got two
Stumpy.
things.
Stumpy, you're in a unique position right now, as you've indicated, more than in the position that a lot of the restaurants and the clothing stores are. What is your true feeling on what we should be doing right now? Because I think you've got a unique perspective on it, where me and a bunch of us on here are kind of on the peripheral of that. We're still able to work because we're essential or work from home. And truly, you're not.
Well, I'm sitting here, and it's obviously it's going to depend along with everybody else on how long this thing is going to carry out. But I really think that things are going to change in the next. Actually, it changes daily anyway. But I think it's like that as far as what kind of money is going to be available and whatever down the road from the government and whatever. For me, I'm sitting here. What we're doing is we're basically going through buses and fixing and doing things that we have parts for here. We're not ordering anything special and put in them. We're not spending the money, So we're just kind of sitting here, basically sitting idle and just taking care of what we can do with the resources we have. So for me to spend a dime to go out and do too much, I haven't been doing that. So I think the right idea is to sit and wait on this for a little bit at least. Anyway, I'm not saying real long, but a little bit, and let's see what the government's going to end up doing here, because I think it's going to change considerably. I really do.
How long do we want to table this? Are we looking at, let's look at this in 4 weeks? Are we, what are our parameters to come back to it?
Well, we have a meeting scheduled for May 12th, which we could do virtually and see where things land, or how they stand then. In Minnesota, that is within a few days of the end of the current orders, executive orders. So we may know something by then and see where we can be most effective. I expect to have one application within the next couple of days, and when I do, I will do a virtual meeting with the loan committee, and we'll talk about it and see where it fits. And then we can take that to the full EDA like we've done in the past. We just will treat it regular loan at this point because we don't have any different program.
Okay, let's
I do have a motion. I do have a motion I'd like to make. Besides before tabling this, whether anybody wants to support it or not, I mean, that's up to everybody, but I would like to make the motion to have up to 20,000 available at 1% interest for the non-essential businesses that have been completely shut down and have no operations at all right now. You know, we made it a point earlier. Everybody talked about how we need to do something and do something as quick as possible. I think those are the businesses that have been most affected, that we need to do something for and need to at least make it available to them. That I don't want to wait longer and make those people hold out any longer also, where my motion right now would be for those non-essential businesses that are completely shut down right now.
Okay, motion by Heck.
Justin, is that for 5 years or 3 years or what?
I guess I'll make the motion on the 6 month no interest payment over 5 years. Payments start after 6 months. Again, only for the non-essential businesses that have been completely shut down right now.
Fees,
I second that motion.
Second by Johnson.
fees,
Further discussion? Paul, were you asking about the fees?
yes. Do you want to set a cap on fees, or do you want to, it's or the minimum $500? These folks may need the money that they're borrowing, may not be able to do all of that. Especially if they're non-essential, totally shut down.
I would, I'd like to have the fees charged, but maybe if we can defer those for the 6 months also, if need be. But I would like us to collect the fees on those loans as well.
Normally, we collect fees, but we
If
reduce.
you're gonna do that, you should just put the fees in the loan itself and then it would be paid.
Okay.
Okay, you okay with that, Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Okay,
Moving on.
any further discussion? Brenda, will you do a roll call vote for us?
Shavinsky,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Grindy, Josh? Yes or no? Heck,
Keith?
Yes.
Helms,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
motion carried.
How about that? We got something done today.
Now, President Pachavinsky,
Yes.
two things. First,
Yep.
do we want to deal with the $20,000 cap on all loans? For $20,000 cap for operating expenses on all loans right now? And that would need a motion. And that's regardless of whether it's an emergency loan or any type of loan, just cap the amount of monies that are used for operating expenditures.
I'll make the motion for 20,000 cap.
Okay, we have motion by Grindy,
I'll second it.
second by Blair. Any discussion?
No, sir.
Call roll.
Shavinsky,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Grindy,
Yes.
Heck. Josh?
No, I already said yes. You're
Oh,
looking
I'm
at,
sorry, Justin.
he got muted by accident too somehow.
Oh,
He's muted.
Yes.
okay. Helms,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
Okay.
And now, Mr. President, we have the other items.
Yes.
Like I can explain briefly what's going on so you can hear what's happened so far.
You want to do all these,
I'm sorry?
in one motion?
I think when I get done, we can do them all in one motion. You're just ratifying actions.
Okay.
The first one is Valley Golf. They asked for a 6-month extension, deferral on their loan, because who knows how much golf is going to be this year. That made sense and was within the parameters of what you said. Where it is different is they don't make any payments for the other 6 months of the year. And I presume that the intent of the EDA from the discussions we've had was that there wouldn't be any interest charged until they started paying loans again. So in my opinion, they should be interest-free until May 1st next year. Mike's Pizza asked for a 3-month deferral of their rent payments, their lease payments, and I will work with Sherry Arns before that period is done to talk about a repayment schedule. Hardware Hank asked for a 6-month deferral on their loan. That was within the parameters, so that's fine. Dollins are asking for a 6-month extension to close on their home. The only question I have is, do you want them to charge? I told them we may charge the extra $1,000 like we've done in the past. And you just tell me if you want me to collect the $1,000 or not on that. And Forks Builders is buying a lot and they want to build in the 21-22 building season. That will be a lot that will be used for Northland construction class home. And I think that is reasonable and we should do that. That they should get the home done within the 2 years, roughly close to the 2 years they have to build. But just so that everything is okay on that, I just brought it to your attention. So I'd ask for one motion, and you need to give me guidance on the $1,000 regarding Dowling.
Okay, I'm gonna ask for a motion in a second, and then we'll have some discussion about the details. So we need a motion on these.
I'll make the motion and waive the $1,000.
I second that.
Okay, a motion by Grindy. Who seconded that?
Justin.
Justin. Second by Heck.
Excuse me 1 second. You're going to do what?
They're going to waive the $1,000 that we commonly get when somebody extends their payment, the closing on the lot they're buying.
So they're going to give us $1,000 up front for the lot, and then it's just going to go. They're going to extend the time frame to be able to complete the home.
No, they've given us $1,000 for the lot because the closing deadline is roughly now. They've asked to extend for another 6 months. And what I heard is that the motion on the second was to waive it. We commonly charge an extra $1,000 down payment to extend it, and the motion was to waive that extra $1,000.
And that was for Forks or that other?
Dowling.
Okay.
That's what that's all about, Dowling.
Any further discussion?
No, sir.
Okay, call roll.
Korczynski,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Grindy,
Yes.
Heck,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Okay, unanimous.
All right. Thank you very much. Before we adjourn, our next meeting is going to be May 12th, right?
It's scheduled for May 12th, yes.
Okay. Josh, I'd like you to dress a little nicer next time, okay?
Ron,
Did you bring the virtual lunch, by the way?
hey, Ron, we might be
All right.
late on that. It's one more thing. Ron, can you hear me, honey?
Yes, sir.
Remember May 12th, we might be late at noon.
Oh, sure.
You got water and light?
Auction.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Second.
Who did the second?
Okay.
I did.
Black. Black second. Who? I don't know who made the motion.
I did, Josh.
Josh did. Grindy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Everybody, thanks for all the work, Paul and